And now we have Gail Knapp on in our town hall today. Gail is a member of the NAP Commission on Credentialing, one of the hardest working committees in NAP right now. Gail, are you there and ready for my questions?
I certainly am. Anything that you can ask, I will do the best I can to answer.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you joining us and being available in the town hall this evening. We know that you and the other members of the Commission on Credentialing answered most of these questions quite thoroughly in September at the NTC, but I think that it is worthwhile to go over these again. We have been hearing a lot of talk about alpha testing and beta testing. Can you tell us what that is all about, what they are all about, and the differences between them?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to do that. If you don't mind, before I start, let me point out to anyone who was not able to attend any of our workshops or was not in Buffalo that they can, oh, I'm sorry, my clock is going off. They can find out all about what we're doing by looking at the website, the NAP website, under documents. The criteria for credentialing document should be there, as well as a copy of the PowerPoint that we presented at the NTC. And I also would like to invite, I noticed looking at the list of participants that Rosalie Stroman, who is also a commissioner, is also present, and invite her to help me out if I get stuck or if I don't say something she thinks we should be saying. Having said that, this commission was created not as a committee, but as a separate commission in our bylaws 3 years ago. And the commission has the long-term goal of taking over the job that is done by the Professional Development Committee eventually. And during the transition, it is a bit confusing because we're going to be operating together for some time as we slowly take over the job and they slowly dissipate and give us the job as their committee ends its charge. But that will take some time. At the moment, we're both operating simultaneously. Up until now, the Commission on Credentialing has been simply creating the new process. And the important thing for people to remember is change can be painful and change can be difficult. And this is a very, very dramatic change. When we looked back in our first year at where the credentialing categories of RP and PRP started, the old-timers who are still with us told us that initially it was not imagined that those people who were RPs would actually be serving clients as parliamentarians. So the emphasis in the credentialing process for RPs was on book knowledge. These would be people in the imagination of the people who created the RP who were very knowledgeable about the book, where the professional registered parliamentarian would also be knowledgeable about serving as a professional parliamentarian with organizations. Therefore, our current credentialing process concentrates on book knowledge for the RP and on participation and working knowledge for the PRP. As I'm sure you all know, that's changed over time. And now the RPs are certainly serving clients. So the first thing the Credentialing Commission did was change the definition for the future. And we are now saying that the RP should be skilled in handling ordinary meetings under ordinary circumstances in routine matters. And the PRP should be particularly skilled in handling the unusual or the specialized kind of meeting. So we are now going to be assuming that both RPs and PRPs are in fact serving clients. Well, the 1,200 questions doesn't test that. And the other big thing that has changed is we're if you remember when President Jones was talking about how we're trying to make things clear and identify where things are, well, one of the things that has changed based on that bylaw amendment is we're making a clear distinction between learning material and being assessed, that is tested, and whether you've already learned it. So the part of NAP that we've been hearing about so far this evening, the part that's involved in education and teaching, is kept totally separate by rule in the bylaw amendment from the process of assessing that learning, which is the province of the Commission on Credentialing. Having said that, now we're back to your question. Eventually, I will get there. And that is, we wanted to make sure that all of our testing materials were statistically accurate. The bylaw amendment asks us to use good psychometric techniques. So what we have done is, with the help of many volunteer members and the 6 members of the commission, we have put together a 3-step process. It will be mirrored in the PRP eventually, but at this point we're only working on the actual assessments at the RP. And the 3 steps are, first, objective book knowledge, which is a set of multiple choice tests. Then the kind of things that RPs do outside of meetings and in essay format, which would be step 2. And then at step 3 would be the actual performance of the jobs that an RP would be doing in an actual meeting. In order to make sure that we had good materials, we started with the alpha testing, which we started last year, and based on some of that feedback, we've done some changes and additional questions. We had some drafting committees made up of credentialed parliamentarians putting together the multiple choice questions for step 1. They are currently being tested by the alpha testers. Alpha testers are all members who already have at least an RP credential, and they are taking the tests using the brand new software, all of the forms of the test, because we have alternate forms. Altogether there will be 8 tests. The first 7 are based on specific information from very specific rules that are identified in that criteria for credentialing document. So instead of saying learn the whole book, we're saying these are the rules you should have in your head. And we've organized those questions into very specific categories. So the first one is basics of motions, and then we get to main motions, and then we get to subsidiary motions, and all the way up until finally we end up with being a professional parliamentarian. All of these are things that a knowledgeable parliamentarian should be able to do from memory in their head. Then the last step, even though you're dealing with ordinary situations and ordinary meetings as an RP, we all know that ordinary situations don't always end up being ordinary in a real meeting. So we assume that the RP will be able, if faced with something that they don't have in their head, to run quickly to the book and look up the answer. So the last of the multiple choice tests things, again, with specific rules that we've identified that are likely to show up, but we'll be able to go to the book and look for the answers. And then we move on to step 2 and step 3. The alpha testers are taking the tests just as the candidate would, giving us feedback about the questions, giving us feedback about the process. Based on that feedback and a statistical analysis of that feedback, we hope very soon this winter to be ready for the beta testers. These will be people who do not have the credential but wish to earn it and are willing to do that in the uncomfortable, perhaps needing several variations as we learn mistakes that we've made, and delays as we fix things up. So the NAP board has agreed to give those beta testers who complete all 3 steps under these perhaps difficult conditions, the opportunity to do all the tests, and if they're successful on all 3 steps and complete the entire process, they will be awarded the RP and will have their testing fee waived. Everyone, while this is going on, will still be able to do the 1,200 questions and will continue to be able to do the 1,200 questions until we take over the RP, at which point there will be a grandfathering time where people who have started the RP and successfully passed 2 parts of the 1,200 questions will have 2 years in order to do a transition period. Did I answer that question?
Let me interrupt you there and just revisit. Can a person, a credentialed member, still sign up to participate in alpha testing?
Absolutely, absolutely, we would appreciate it. In fact, there are 2 things that we're hoping that credentialed people will be willing to volunteer for us. One is for the alpha testing process, which is ongoing right now, but it's a question of taking these 8 tests, and there are 3 forms for each test. An actual candidate will not take all 3 forms, but we want people to be successful. So we're doing this in tiny little steps that build on each other. And if you're not successful in the first time you try it, we give you a different test for the second part, but on that same material, and hopefully until you are successful. So you have to do the steps in order and finish one before you get to the next one. And because the terminology is brand new, the steps are the big thing, the multiple choice, then the things done outside of the meeting, and then the performance part. All of this, by the way, can be done online. The first part is divided into parts.
How do those credentialed members participate if they want to? How can new credentialed members sign up to be alpha testers?
Everyone was sent a letter, an email asking for their interest, and if they have not responded to that, they still can, and they can simply click on the link and fill out the form, and it will go to Greg Goodwiller, who is handling our data collection and running the data part of and giving people their password so that they can participate. So all they have to do is fill out that form, and it will go to him, and I will get a copy of it, and that will get them the password they need to start taking the test. Let me please say also that there's another thing that a credentialed member could do. If the first part, the first step, the 8 parts of step 1, all of those parts are multiple choice tests. Once those are completely tested, once the beta testers have completely tested them and we open them up to everyone, they will be totally scored by machine because it's all done on the computer. But step 2 and step 3 require essay type writing, and that has to be scored by a human being. A machine can't do that. So we are doing 3 things at the same time, which is, I know, making things confusing. We're still looking for credentialed people who are alpha testers to be the person who tries out these tests in order to see what we did well, what we need to fix before we offer it to people who are working on the credential. We also need credentialed members who are willing to do the training in order to be able to score the written assignments in step 2 and step 3. And if I might do a quick commercial, we are currently looking for them, and all credentialed members should have gotten an invitation for this also. If you think you might be interested, if you're already at least an RP, and you think that you might be interested in being an evaluator, we are doing 2 workshops that are introduction to evaluation. It is the same thing that we did at the NTC, but we'll have more time. We didn't have time at the NTC to do it fully. And one of them is coming up this Thursday with a repeat the following Monday, and then the other is 2 weeks later on the 15th and 19th of November. Anyone who wishes to find out if they want to be an evaluator and is credentialed is welcome to come to those, either one of the first two and either one of the second two, and you'll find out everything you need to know about being an evaluator. If you can't come to those, we will be doing another repeat in January. Just let us know that you're interested, because we definitely need well-trained, skilled evaluators. Then the beta testers, I was absolutely flabbergasted when we asked all the members if they wanted to be beta testers, because we were hoping we need at least 30 completers in order for a good statistical analysis of our data. And I was absolutely floored, hoping to get at least 30, when almost 500 people signed up. And obviously that's way more. That's more than we have currently as RPs. So I think that those of you who are doing education are doing a good job, because you've got people all excited and interested, which is wonderful. But we have asked all of the people who signed up to be beta testers, and they're currently filling out a demographic form, and our data experts are going to look at those people from a demographic point of view and try to select a sample that best represents the diversity of the NAP membership, so that we can have a smaller group that would be very representative to do that initial testing. And I'd like to say to anyone who was wanting to be one of these people and isn't selected for that, you have a choice. You can wait until the beta testers are finished, at which point we will open it to everyone, or you can continue with the 1,200 questions and get your credentials sooner. Okay, next question. Are you still there?
Hello, Gail. Yes, I am still here. I'm talking to you with my mic muted. Okay, so you have answered several questions that have shown up in the Q&A box regarding beta testing. And so now let me move on from the types of testing and ask you, let me also say that you have answered the question that persons completing and successfully completing the beta testing process will attain their RP credential. So let me ask you, Gail, what is the start date for the new exam process?
I can't answer that because of the process we're using. You see, the whole idea behind the alpha and beta testing is to find out what we're doing and fix any mistakes, errors, or difficulties before we get to the next step. So the alpha testers are currently doing the tests. We're going to do a statistical analysis of what they do. For example, these are all multiple choice questions. If we find on one of the tests that there is a question where all of the people who did extremely well on that test missed that question, or too many of them missed that question, we're going to go back and look at that question and see if we need to fix it. Because the people who did well should be doing well on that question, right? So that kind of analysis is going to be done. And we're not going to start beta testing until it's done. So how long will it take? Well, if the alpha testers finish the test quickly, then the data analysis will happen right after that. If the alpha testers finish quickly and the data analysis shows that we're ready to go, we'll start beta testing. If the alpha testers don't finish quickly, because we're letting them do this on their own schedule, because this is a huge job, or if they identify problems we have to go back and fix, then it will delay the start of the beta testing. And the same thing will happen when we start doing the beta testing. As the beta testers are taking the tests, I'm sure they're going to find things we didn't notice. It is so easy when you get so involved in this material to not see things that someone looking at it with fresh eyes does see. So for that reason, I can't give you a date. We are very hopeful that in the coming year, we will be ready to do something. I'm even hopeful that we will be ready to start by the convention. But I'm not going to promise that. We can't say that yet because we don't know how well this will work, how quickly people will get things done, and how well the process will go.
Well, thank you for that answer. All right, so that clears up a lot of questions. We really don't have a start date for the new exam currently, and it's impossible to say right now. Well, what about this question, Gail, that I am asked all the time? I have started to take the individual exam parts for the RP exam. Will I need to start over with the new exam if I have not completed all 5 parts before the new process begins?
No. There are some people who want to wait for the new process, and that is absolutely fine. But the 1,200 question test will continue until we start the new process, and anyone who is underway, who has completed at least 2 of the 5 parts, will have 2 more years before it will end.
And Gail, I believe when you say 2 of the 5 parts, you're not including part 1, that research part.
I think we just said 2 of the 5 parts. Rosalie, if I'm wrong, please correct me. But I believe any 2 of the 5 parts. But I'm doing that from memory, so that might be the case. But there will be 2 years after that to still continue with the old system. So they will both be there simultaneously for at least a 2-year period.
All right, thank you. Now, will the new process be an improvement over the old process?
Well, of course we think so. It'll be different. It will be different.
Well,
it will be different. And part of the difference.
Go ahead, Gail.
Part of the difference is it will definitely take longer. It won't be, now, if somebody wanted to, I mean, when I first became an RP, I studied and studied and studied, and I made an appointment with someone and sat down and for one whole day took tests and passed them and became an RP. You won't be able to do that anymore. You have to do each piece, one piece at a time, and that is in order to be sure that you're successful in one piece before moving to the next piece. So step 1 has 8 parts. So you have to finish part 1 before you go to part 2, and you have to successfully complete part 2 before you go to part 3. And after you finish step 1, you've got to start on step 2. And step 2 has 5 parts, and each part has pieces. And you have to finish 1 before you go to 2. And when you finish all of that, we will then go to step 3, which will be 1 event. We are hoping and expecting to do that as a video meeting, so it will also be available online. So the candidate will be there with 2 evaluators and a video of a meeting. So everyone will be treated the same way as we do it now in the RP exam. Each person who comes to a PQC has a different group of people doing a meeting, following one of the scripts, right? Now it will be a full meeting for each candidate, not a small piece because we have to fit 7 of them in that session over the 2 days. But one whole session with just 1 candidate with 2 evaluators, but it'll all be done online. So it will definitely take longer. We believe that since we're not going to say learn the whole book, we're going to say learn these specific rules for this specific test, and then go to the next test and learn these specific rules for this test. All the way through, we'll be doing that. And for step 2, it's all open book. Use any references you want, because this is the kind of thing a parliamentarian does outside of the meeting, where the parliamentarian has access to any resources that they wish. So we are hoping that this will make it a more practical test based on what parliamentarians actually do. For example, that research section you referred to, there was a time when that test was written, when if you were a parliamentarian sitting next to the president at a big convention with 500 people looking at you, and you needed to look something up in that book, you better be able to do it fast. 500 people are waiting for you to find that answer. Now, with computers, you put in a couple of keywords and it pops up on the screen. So it's archaic. It's a good test when it was written, but now it's not meaningful anymore. So we're going to ask the person on their own, at home, to write scripts, or to demonstrate teaching a class, or to show a chair how to write a bylaw amendment to accomplish something in their bylaws. That's the kind of thing that will be there in step 2.
Okay, so when you say, Gail, that you will ask the examinee to refer to a certain section of the book for this particular part of the test, is that like providing a question guide like the 12, not a question guide, but a guide like the 1200 question guide that we have for the current test? Because people are asking, are we going to have some sort of study guide, like in order study guide?
It's yes, but no, because it's going to be different. We're not giving out the questions like the 1200 questions. So it is not going to be possible to simply memorize the answers to questions about rules. And our questions, although there will be a few questions that say, what is the rule in this situation? Our emphasis in writing those multiple choice questions was on application. Many of our questions read something like, you're the parliamentarian for the Alpha Club, and the president wants to do this. Can he? Okay? In other words, you need to know the rule, but you also need to know what advice you would give if you were the parliamentarian in that situation. With a very strong emphasis on actual application to real life situations. So no, we're not going to hand out the questions. The questions will be kept private. However, we are telling you exactly the rules that you need to know for each test. Every single question will come from one of the identified rules that are there in the criteria for credentialing document, which lists it by topic. So you can say, for this first test, these are the rules I need to be able to know in my head. For this test, these are the rules I need to be able to know. And at the end of the test, you'll get feedback on each question, including the page and line numbers for the rules that you should have picked if you made a mistake.
Okay, and so Gail, I'm hearing that the only thing we will need, or a person may pass the exam by simply studying Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised, the current edition.
Well, they don't have to study the whole book. They need to study the specific rules that are identified for that specific thing that we're doing. And you can, if you go, that's why it is impossible to not use that criteria for credentialing document, which does this all in great depth. That's what's taken us all this time. You will find in that document, this is the topic main motions. Here's the rule, here's the page and line number. Here's the next rule, here's the page and line number. So you'll know exactly which rules you need to know before you take that test.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I have one final question here, Gail, which I'm going to ask you because someone put it in the Q&A box. I don't really quite understand the question, but I'm going to read it. Do you believe with the proposed new process for credentialing for RP that you will have participation from the non-credentialed members? In relation to the total membership, the numbers of new RPs is still a small number. I'm not sure. I mean, of course, if the non-credentialed members are going to be those who are going through the new process. So,
Exactly.
Okay.
And almost 500 offered to be beta testers. I think that says something all by itself.
Yes.
In fact, I saw one of the questions that said, are we still looking for beta? If somebody still wishes to volunteer to be a beta tester, they can still fill out the questionnaire on that the people who already volunteered did, because it's only due the 1st of November, so you still have 2 days. But like I said, almost 500 people have asked to be beta testers, and we are going to be using only 20% of them because we simply can't handle that many.
Well, thank you so much, Gail. I really appreciate that you agreed to come to Town Hall this evening and answer questions about the new process, the new RP credentialing process. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you inviting me because this is exactly the kind of question that I'm getting in my email every day too. Thank you for asking me to join you.
You are very welcome.